Hello there. Welcome back. This is Burnt Coal. It is New Year's Eve 2025, and 2025 has been a tough year for me. I hope it hasn't been so tough for you. Um, but I had a smart grandparent who gave me a good bit of knowledge that smart people, or excuse me, everybody learns from their mistakes. Smart people learn from other people's mistakes. And I'll tell you about some of my mistakes so that you can learn from them. That's part of my experience with this YouTube channel is sharing, well, my experiences with you so that you get something out of them. And in an earlier video, I was touching on how my military service exposed me to some of the corruption of the federal prison complex system, whatever you want to call it. Our justice system has the highest rate of incarcerated persons, excuse me, the highest prison population of any developed country. And so I talked a little bit in that video about how that's disturbing and how our government has financial backing for that built in, which is it's kind of corrupt and disturbing in itself. But I'll tell you a little bit more about me, about old coal. And I was raised in tobacco country, North Carolina, and the Piedmont. And if you're not familiar with North Carolina, it's kind of a wide state. It's got the coast and the Outer Banks on one side, then you've got this stretch of like foothills, and then you have the mountains over in the west. And so I was raised pretty much in the middle, in the Raleigh-Durham area. And my earliest memories, I remember the cartoon of Batman. I really liked Batman. I mean, the old style Batman with Mark Hamill voicing the Joker, like that was a good show. And it taught me, well, it taught me that there aren't any heroes in real life. I didn't see any actually, any actual Caped Crusaders or figures like that. There was the police. Batman interacted with the commissioner of the law enforcement of Gotham, and they kind of worked hand in hand. But I saw the real world police were more of a figure of authority, more of I saw people fearing the police. I saw people being, scared of law enforcement. And not just people in general. I mentioned before that I was raised in a single parent house with my mother, and in flashes during my childhood, we would move in back with her mother. So I had my grandmother and my mother, and both of them were crazy drivers. I mean, they would get behind the wheel and they would put their foot down as hard, and like I remember just being scared in the back seat. They were driving fast, obviously breaking the speed limit, and they would say, "Yeah, we're breaking the law, but that's because we're descended from bootleggers. We're descended from bootleggers. Bootleggers they were people who would ship alcohol across county and state lines. Basically, that was all it is. They would drive fast, try to avoid the cops, because law enforcement, if they caught somebody shipping alcohol across county, state lines, it was a big deal. It was, you know, big trouble. And I don't know the extent of which my mother and grandmother actually ran alcohol because Prohibition was what, back in the 20s? But still, I do remember them driving fast and then just like clenching up whenever they would see a cop, parked somewhere. And in North Carolina, they have a bad habit about having undercover vehicles and parking in inconspicuous places so that, or inconspicuous, I guess, so that they try to catch speeders and they try to catch people coming through. And, I don't ever remember my mother and grandmother being pulled over, but they would always just kind of tense up whenever there were cops around. And, I tried to stay objective and try to stay like, okay, well, that was them. I'm not running alcohol. I'm just going to live my life, not break any laws, not have any run-ins with the cops. And I ended up having my first run-in with running with the law whenever I was 18. I was a college student at East Carolina University. Yeah, go Pirates. They were the number one party school in North Carolina at the time. This was, gosh, ages ago, so I don't know what they are right now, but underage drinking was commonplace. I mean, that's just what it was. I mean, it was a culture of, go to class, find the party afterwards, and run from the cops. Like it was just down in 30, and it was a summer school, and yeah, because I remember there wasn't a lot of other students on campus. It was, kind of a barren campus, just kind of a skeleton crew. And I'll tell you, as a young man, I had a girlfriend that just she lit me on fire. I mean, I was not making smart decisions, and we were at a party in a dorm. Not a smart place to have a party because everybody's kind of stacked up there, and any loud noise, everybody's going to hear it. And I remember this girlfriend of mine. She just was rubbing me the wrong way. I remember getting angry and upset. She was playing some game like she was going to go off to another man or something like that. And I was drunk. I was pretty drunk. Had been drinking at this party, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do the responsible thing. I'm going to go ride my bike and cool off. I'm not going to lose my temper around her. And I left the dorm, got on my bicycle, and start riding around campus. And I'll tell you, I was, I was swerving. Like I was drunk. It was kind of fun. At the same time, I was kind of like, whoa, okay, I don't really have good balance. Like this is, I was obviously like having a hard time with my motor skills. And I remember um, clearly there was a campus cop like just standing up. She was kind of like posed on the hood of her car, and she saw me from a distance, kind of like a football field away. And she said, "Hey, hey, what are you doing?" And I remember I stopped, and I was just kind of like, "Oh, just riding my bike. I'm okay. I'm just a college kid. I'm supposed to go here." Just kind of like that. And well, she was like, "Are you doing a lot of swerving? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Well, she came up closer and smelled the alcohol on me and said, "Well, you're not fine." And she gave me a full DUI test. I'm talking like do the whole nose to elbows and walk in a straight line while saying the alphabet backwards, that sort of stuff. And I, I didn't do well, I guess. I just remember like crying and being like, "What am I doing? Like, what a DUI? Like, come on, what are you actually doing?" Other police officers showed up. They took my bike, put it in the back of a truck, and I got loaded into the back of a cop car in handcuffs. And so I'm riding through Greenville in the back of a cop car, just bawling my eyes out, just like, what is my mom going to think? Oh my gosh, like what am I doing with my life? I'm a bad guy. I'm in a cop car. I'm a bad guy. This is it. My life is over. But we get to the courthouse, and she takes me out with handcuffs, and they bring me in front of a judge, and she goes to talk to the judge for a little bit, kind of tell the judge what happened, and the judge kind of peers around a glass, you know, little cubicle, and looks at me and looks back at her, and I remember him saying, "Well, he was on a bicycle, and that's not a motor vehicle, so you can't get him with driving under the influence because he wasn't operating a motor vehicle in North Carolina." And I just remember her being like, "Oh, well, I gotta get him on something." And the magistrate was like, "Well, you can still get him on underage drinking." Yay! Okay, let's get him on underage drinking. It was just like she was, excited. Just book him on something. Book him on something. He's gotta get something. And luckily, I didn't sit in the drunk tank for that. I was kind of just given a ticket, dropped back off, and so just really not a fun night. But I was given a court date, and I missed the court date. It was in August. I thought the court date was in September. So whenever late August came around, I got a call from my mother back in my hometown. Again, I'm back in school and college. And she says, "Hey, the sheriff from such and such county, North Carolina, he came knocking on my door saying that he's got a warrant for your arrest. Said that you missed a court date." Me, dumb young college kid, I was in my I had an apartment at the time, so I'm just in my apartment, just like shaking, like, "Okay, so what'd you tell him?" Like, I mean, and she was like, "Well, I told him where you were. I told him where your apartment is, and that was about an hour and a half ago. So you probably have another hour before he gets there. So you might as well go turn yourself in." Her exact words. This is the same woman who would just drive around all crazy with me in a car and just blame it on being a bootleg outlaw, and now she's sending the sheriff straight to my house. Like, come on, thanks. There's no loyalty in outlaws. So I hopped on my bicycle. This is a couple months later. It's late August now. I hopped on my bicycle and I biked down to that little courthouse that I was at a few months prior. And I just remember thinking again, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to turn myself in. I'm going to walk in there. It's going to be okay. It's going to be. I'm not a bad person. They're not going to treat me like a bad person. And I go up. I knock on the door. Um, hey, I'm Josh. I missed a court appointment. I was going to see if I could get it rescheduled. And they said, "Oh, you missed a court? Hey, what's your name?" I start flipping through some papers. "Oh, you're Josh Cole. We have a warrant here for your arrest." And another officer hops up in the same office and says, "Well, you made my job real easy on me, didn't you, boy?" Still, can't forget that. So again, they put me in handcuffs, and this time I'm taken to a jail cell. And I had some friends who were nice enough to come post bond, basically give them $500 so that I could leave the jail cell and then say, "Hey, I'm going to come back for court for this underage drinking ticket." I mean, telling you all this because hopefully I'm not sounding crazy that this seems like just a hassle for something that's really not a big deal. And I got put through a lot of, I don't know, it was stress for me trying to think I need to do the right thing and be a good kid. And all the while, it just seemed like the system was set up to not care if I was good or not. The system was set up there just to get people in. Again, that officer had a decision about, oh, okay, well, I arrested him for DUI, and I can't get him on a DUI. So then, do I just let him go? No, let's find something to give him. So that just it really at the same time, I have to add though, while all this was happening, right in Greenville, North Carolina, home of the East Carolina Pirates, a friend of mine was pulled over in a traffic stop and treated very um, just unpleasantly by this officer. And I have to add that my friend is a person of color, driving a green Mustang. And the Mustang wasn't his. He was riding with a girl who was drunk and wanted him to drive her Mustang. And he was driving very sensibly, safely, driving down a road. I think maybe I don't know. According to him, he said that he was moving with traffic, but an officer flew up behind him, flew on his lights. He thought the officer was going to pit maneuver him. And this is back in 2010. And the officer said, "You're driving crazy. You're going 80 in a 45." And so whenever I heard the story from him and I heard about some other busts in the area, I kind of got the sense that I had gotten a different treatment from law enforcement than if I had a different skin color. And so just the fact that the law enforcement, number one, wasn't there to do actual, making sure there's peace and the community is safe and all that. It seemed like they were there to just get people, and they had a target market for who what they were looking for too. That again, back in 2010, it was definitely inside the cultural sphere that cops would target people of color. Definitely, I mean, you got Richard Pryor making that part of his special back in the 70s and 80s. And I only took what my experience that I went through as gospel. I mean, I would hear about things happening to other people, but really what I would experience myself is what I could, you know, reason from. And so I had experienced my running with the law. I'd experienced how um, my my family would treat the law as like a system to be worked around. And then, yeah, I just saw how the law worked from the outside. Shortly after all this underage drinking ticket stuff was resolved, I joined the Navy. That was one thing that I had to resolve before I got to enlist, which was a pretty quick process. But getting into the Navy and joining that organization and that culture, there's something that they have to follow called the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Every service member, whether it's Army, Marine, Air Force, Navy, I think Coast Guard counts sometimes. It's a little joke for the Puddle Pirates. That they have to follow this other set of laws. So not only do you have the set of laws that you're under whenever you're in the United States, then you have the set of laws that you always have to follow as a service member. And those set of laws can be enforced within within the service. And there's also like police in the Navy. They're called Master at Arms. They have a little badge. They check IDs whenever you're coming into the gate. They have dogs that sniff for bombs and drugs. And those guys are held to a super high standard. If a Master at Arms was to ever, I mean, even take his weapon out of the holster is a big deal. Like if anybody sees him take his weapon out of the holster, if he has to unholster his weapon, gotta do a big report for that. That's very scrutinized. If he ever discharges a round, he or she, excuse me, Master at Arms ever discharges a round from that weapon, it's a big deal. They have to explain fully why this whole, use of force continuum, rules of engagement they have to follow. And let's say that Master at Arms, who's a police officer in the Navy, is ever wrong about pulling out their weapon and firing at something or someone, well, they're out and they might serve brig time or prison time. Meanwhile, outside in the civilian world, these law enforcement officers have what's called qualified immunity. They can just pull out their guns and shoot and say, I was scared for my life. And that's a good enough reason. That's justifiable. So I'm not going to dig in this video into our incarcerated persons and how that system is still a system of slavery. I just wanted to touch on what I like to think of as the top of the funnel and my perspective of growing up in the South as a person with this skin color and having my own experiences with them just early in life. I haven't even talked about later in life experiences with the law. But as a young man, I quickly got to see that there's no mass crusaders. There probably should be mass crusaders because who we have to defend and protect our community and keep it, keep the peace and all that, they have ulterior motives. They have their own market. They have their own immunity for doing that. So it's no longer a force of good for the people. They just become a force. And yeah, I'll expand on how now that top of the funnel then feeds into the court system in a later video. I hope that you enjoyed this and got something out of it, and stay tuned for more.